Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics. So, the last time I'm going to do this, but I'm going to mix up Brexit and football for the last time, I swear, until the next time. In the wake of a quite remarkable Euros competition, one in which we showed the best and worst of us, but it's the worst that Boris Johnson is allowing to define us on the world stage. And because this has its roots in Brexit mentality, it will also have the same results with the rest of his global Britain agenda. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So this year's Euros, where the hosting duties were shared around in what I thought was quite a good model for the future. But the key matches were at Wembley, which was, in retrospect, less of a good model. What I want to do first of all in this video is to discuss some good and bad takeaways from the tournament. Like on the good side, the England team made a real point of sending a message of inclusivity. It was there throughout. It wasn't just taking the knee. It was in the rainbow laces and armbands. It was in Gareth Southgate making the point really clearly for those who don't pick up on subtle cues. Now, I don't know exactly what prompted them to go so heavily onto this because this was new. Was it a reaction to the ugliness of Brexit-fueled xenophobia that has been sweeping the country since 2016? You know, xenophobic hate crimes increased significantly after the referendum and then again after the 2019 general election. And the reason is simple. Like, we're not a particularly racist nation. All countries have their racists, and quite a lot of them, but it's a minority. A tolerant nation is one where the difference is it makes clear to them that you lot are in the minority, keep your cretinous thoughts to yourselves, we're not interested. And this was largely the case in Britain before 2016. Racism was there, of course, and it was clear and it often spilled over. And those who were the victims of this moronic intolerance would have been much more acutely aware of the attitudes than I would be. I had to read about them or be told about them by others. But from 2016, it's become increasingly obvious, even for those of us who are not the intended target of these attacks. And with a government that, like Trump, consistently refused to condemn that behaviour, even encouraging it at times, perhaps the England team felt the need to use their influence to show a better side to the country. At the very least, they held a mirror up to it. Which one of you are racist and which ones aren't? Oh, you're booing us. Oh, you're the racist. Thanks for pointing yourselves out. Because the majority of the country have been appalled at all the negatives. Let's recount the four major categories of dreadful things that these English hooligans, not football fans, hooligans and thugs, did to further drag our country through the mud during this tournament. They booed our team, and that more seriously, they booed opposition teams. And these were people who are just barbarians. There's no explanation. Like booing a player in sport, you do that when it's an unsporting player, when someone does something very unpleasant. They might commit, for example, a deliberate professional foul, quite a nasty one. And there was a little bit of that a bit later on, I suppose. But at the same time, that's not what the booing about. The booing was started. You don't boo the entire team, and you don't boo the entire team when they've done nothing to deserve it. The second thing is we booed national anthems. Now that's the next level up. Like booing the Italian team is generally disrespectful. Some people take the view, professional athletes can sort of take it in their stride. But it's also disrespectful to the fans. But booing a national anthem, that is xenophobia pure and simple. And as bad as these hooligans have behaved in the past, this seems new. With games hosted in England, there was not a lot to be done about it. But this is likely to be a case of the minority of bellends ruining it for the rest of us. How often have we seen in life that something gets spoiled just by a small minority? Come the next tournament, if these evolutionary throwbacks try the same trick, we could well find that tickets for England supporters are withdrawn. It'll be a case of saying to the English FA, can you guarantee that the people buying these tickets won't behave like this? And the answer will be no. Banning your supporters would be an entirely justified move to prevent this sort of disrespect, which then completely ruins the games for our team. Then there were assaults, from shining a laser into the Danish keeper's face to attacking foreign supporters visiting to watch their team to storming Wembley. Where were the police? What I don't understand how that even happened. Where were the police? Are they going to try and say, oh, we didn't expect much trouble? They just trashed parts of London. Even this idiot who stuck a flare up his arse was a bit of a warning that trouble was coming. And he was committing an assault in his own way, wasn't it? An assault on the reputation of the nation, as well as his anus. And finally, there was the online abuse of foreign fans, of our own players, including the racial abuse of the 3 English players who missed their penalties. For which I have to say, I know Gareth Southgate has taken responsibility as the manager. It's actually my fault. I do apologise. It wasn't their fault. See, when it came to penalties, I said to my partner, that's it, we've lost. We were watching that. I watched the first half on BBC and the second half on ITV. Reasons don't want to do it. But the ITV pundits were trying to say, oh, we've won the last 2 penalty shootouts. No. Don't give me that. We do not win penalties against top opposition at the sharp end of tournaments. The pressure gets to us. It's not that we're bad penalty takers. The pressure just gets to us. And worse than that, do you know what? And this is where it is my fault. I said at the time, because we brought on 2 players specifically for penalties right at the death of extra time. I said, wouldn't it be tragic if those 2 players who were just brought on to do these penalties missed them both? And they did. So sorry about that. That was actually entirely my fault. But the point is that what we have here is a catalogue of the sort of behaviour that will prevent us hosting another tournament for another generation at least. We have the stadia. We have the facilities, we have the infrastructure. We can put on a cracking show. What we don't have are the manners. We hosted a very successful Olympics, Rugby World Cups, Cricket World Cup. You know, we just can't do it for football. It attracts the crazies for some reason. And this predates Johnson and Brexit. Of course it does. This has been happening. In the 80s, for example, you know, even in domestic competition, English clubs weren't allowed to play in Europe for a time. Then we got to host Euro 1996. It sort of went okay until we lost, and then we trashed the place again, reminding the world that actually we're not quite ready. Then we sort of thought we were getting better again. It's all gone again. But, you know, there was a feeling we were getting better. But out of that list of obscenities committed by these hooligans, and it's a long old list, how many were condemned by Boris Johnson? How many were condemned by our government? One. One of them was, actually. You may be surprised it's any at all. He supported the booing. I don't think he supported the attacks, the assaults, but he didn't call them out as far as I can tell. The only thing he attacked was the racial abuse of the England players who missed their penalties. That was it. In the entire tournament of atrocities, that was the one thing he called out. Now ask yourself why that is. It's not because Boris Johnson is actually against the racist abuse. He's dished out a fair amount himself. The majority of this country, even in England, when I say country, I am talking about England here, not Britain or the UK. They're against all of these behaviours. They're all being roundly condemned. A guy who racially abused the penalty missers, for example, had the Twitterati find out who he was, find out who he worked for, and reported him to his employer. That employer then promptly tweeted that they would be investigating. He will not be keeping his job. Much like that estate agent who assaulted the chief medical officer recently. The majority of people are not only decent, but they don't like the idea of using a company that doesn't share those values. Johnson attacks this racial abuse because he knows that the majority of his support base are against it. The majority of the public were against all of the abuse, but he doesn't care about that. He only needs to pander to those whose votes he is after, which means that he is of the opinion that his support base, the people he needs to appeal to, will not stand for the abuse of England players. I don't think it was specifically the racial abuse in itself that they were against, but the fact that it was an abuse of England players. But they will stand for the booing of the England team when they make anti-racism stance. They will boo opposition teams. They will boo the opposition national anthems. All of those things are acceptable to Johnson's support base, so he doesn't attack that. We have insulted some of our neighbours, but Boris Johnson won't condemn that. And that's where it gets really serious. Like, a group of players boos the opposition team or boos the national anthem. Thugs. In any other country, if that happened, thugs. Because the government representing the nation would stand up and say, that's not us. That is not us. Where we can find out who these people are, we will take action. They will be banned from tournaments. Those who committed assaults will face the full fury of the law. We'll understand you won't be able to catch everyone, but you'll do your best. That is not what occurred. Now, because the government wouldn't condemn it, the government are basically saying, yeah, this is us. This is Britain. This is Brexit Britain. Now, consider what that attitude means for his global Britain idea. Boris Johnson prizes approval from these degenerates more than international respect. When a Prime Minister attaches so little value to respect from key allies around the world, then the prospects of leading the world on anything diminish considerably. And they already weren't very high. Our engagement with the world post-Brexit has been categorised by two things. One, conflict with our European neighbours. The disgraceful conduct at this tournament has only been the latest example. The government have been leading the way on that. And secondly, giving very preferential trade terms to countries outside of Europe. We've raised walls against our neighbours and acted like doormats for everyone else. Neither rudeness nor capitulation commands respect. The nation is losing out from this in a big way and will continue to do so. The tournament did show the better side of us, not just in the stand the team made under Gareth Southgate, but also the behaviour of others. The government may not have condemned the thugs, but everyone else did. When the young German fan was abused by the savages, others raised £36,000 for her, which she donated to a charity of her choice, UNICEF in this case. Like anywhere else, there are more good people than bad here, and the bad are in the minority. The only difference between England and, say, other places, is that the degenerate minority are being enabled by the government. They're effectively being told that they're somehow in the majority, and that what passes for thoughts are shared by the many. That's it. That's the difference. But the same government that enabled this has been enabling this behaviour for 5 years and is going to continue to do so. Absolutely. And just as with the Orange One's America, Johnson's Britain will get nowhere on the world stage until it changes its attitude. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.